Welcome along once again to the Cardiff City Forum. Once again, we got a good panel as usual. We've got Pan of Bluebird Corner who's joining us again. Thank you, Pan. Terry Walton, the gardening god guru, whatever, is with us, and Richard Lewis is with us as well. So it's great, good panel. Quite a lot to talk about. I'll tell you what. I'll go to you first, Pan. Actually, because I posted something on the Cardiff City phone-in Facebook page, and I just put a little kind of headline up, and I said, a tale of two cups. I don't think it was you, but somebody said, Pan, that it wasn't so much of that. It was more a case of a tale of two performances. It was kind of light and shade really between the two, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think the word that's been going around lately is inconsistency. I think obviously if you look back to the Wigan game, I think from Wigan onwards it's win lose, win lose, win lose, win lose.
Yeah.
So on that scenario, we should win against away to Blackpool. But yeah, I was quite disappointed because obviously you sometimes think in cup games, especially the first round, that maybe we would have try some of the younger other players, really the squad players. But I think to be fair to the manager, he always goes out strong in all these games that we play, and that sort of knocks me a little bit in that really disappointing. I mean, obviously they had a bounce with former Swansea manager Williams, obviously in his first game, so that can happen. But yeah, I think just a disappointment because the Wrexham game, obviously a lot of people from other clubs watch that, and a few fans from different clubs contact me, and they were saying, "Oh, look, you're looking brilliant. The way you're playing football." But I think as City fans, we're more realistic in terms of what performances we've seen. It has been up and down. So yeah, I think from my point of view, it's that inconsistency. I was really disappointed, that we didn't sort of maintain that form from the Wrexham game. And I think, we say about young players, but, obviously, look, Ruben's 23 now. I look at young players at 18, 19, and these players have spent, over 100 games for us. So they're established first-team players. And I just think, I looked at that and I thought, without question, in January, we're going to need some extra bodies in key positions because I think there are a few players in that team who have that inconsistency of performance, and it's been happening, throughout the season, really. So, there's plenty to work on.
Okay, I'm going to go over to Terry in a second, but just kind of fairly straightforward, not quite a one-word answer, but more or less, Pan. Is your glass currently half full or half empty?
Oh, it's definitely half full. Half full. I mean, look, we're in the quarterfinals of the Caribou Cup. It's only the third time in 65 years. We got a game in hand to go top of the league. Anyone who says it's half empty, really, you've got to be positive. But I think it's realism as well that, there's a few players there. As I said, we just need to stay in that top 3 or 4, get to January, I think, and strengthen. I think the midfield for me is the key positions. I know we were conceding goals through a spell, but I do think it's the midfield that we do need extra strength in.
Okay. Terry, I'm guessing you saw the Wrexham game, did you? Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a different. I actually posted where they find this team because it was the most consistent, most attacking, most creative, most flair we've seen all season.
Yeah, we looked so good, didn't we? What about the fact that we then went to lose, to get knocked out in the first round of the FA Cup? By Peterborough, bottom of the table. Is there anything in there, Terry, about the fact we had those 3 away games consecutively? Quite a lot of travel going on, up and down, training, whatever. Does that take it out in the players? I wonder. I don't know.
I really can't see that. I mean, you're professional. They're all relatively young. That's their job. They shouldn't be a problem. It seems to be when we play a side who are much lower in the division or less capable, they pack the defence. We fiddle around in midfield and we don't seem to have ways of breaking it down. We don't go direct enough. We played against Wrexham, fast-moving football, broke the defence, scored goals. And, it was good. But then when we played again, you look at their fixtures over the last 7 games. Lost one, lost one, lost one, lost. You know, we play one fantastic game, and then we suddenly the inconsistency kicks in, and we get lost in midfield.
Yeah, and there's a question on the screen there from Martin Ryan. If you want to respond to that, Terry, Turnbull and Robertson. I mean, when they're picked, I remember previously, it might have been last season though, I think, for a couple of games, they played together, and because they're both kind of ball players, you know, then I thought that it was quite nice, you know, the Ruben pushing on, give us like a creativity, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
They don't seem to be kind of working too much together recently, and of course Robertson's just come back in. But what's your thoughts on Turnbull? Where do you see his best position?
I think he's a centre midfielder, and he needs to come forward more. He's another player. He's either on the boil or he's completely off the boil. He makes silly mistakes. He doesn't control the midfield. He doesn't move forward, and he just does not play consistently. And you take last season when he came in, we thought we found a good midfielder. But this year he's been out. When he gets picked, he doesn't seem to turn up some games.
Yeah, he has been, you know, Rich, he has been really disappointing, hasn't he, to say the least?
He has, yeah. I mean, a friend of mine is a Celtic fan, yeah, and when we
they loved him, didn't they? They really liked him.
Yeah. And I asked him, I said, "What's he like?" And he said, "Really good." He said he likes to shoot from distance. He said he'll score you a lot of goals, and we've seen quite the opposite. I mean, you did mention, Steve. Obviously, there was that short spell last season where it was the midfield three of him, Robertson, and Ruben Caldwell.
Slightly different formation, I suppose.
Yeah. And you know, they look good then, but this season, I don't know, he just looks really slow, really off the pace. I get frustrated when I see his name in the starting lineup. I think I dread it and think, oh, you know, this guy again. I feel as though he's going to slow us down. I feel as though he doesn't offer the same, you know, offensiveness as Joe Caldwell does. And there was a time that they were alternating, weren't they, earlier this season? And I thought it was to our detriment when that was happening.
So yeah, we moved from onto a different midfielder. I knew this was going to come up tonight. So I'll ask you first, Rich, since you're on there. Would you have Ramsey back?
No. In a word, no. No disrespect to him. He's had a fantastic career. We should remember him for what he's given us and what he's done for us. I just feel as though his race is run, and I just feel as he's another example of a player who injuries have got the better of, and a great player whose career has petered out, and you know, it's sadly he's coming to the end. You know, I do know a family member of his who said to me that he craved the 100 Wales caps, and that's what he was sort of hanging around for, was to get to. He's not far away. I think he's on 86 or 88. I just feel as though maybe his race is run, and perhaps it'd be a good time not to call it a day.
Yeah, it's funny how this. I mean, of course, he played for us, and he's a local lad, and he, you know, played for us as a youth, and then he came back. But you know, what we're basing this supposition on, that he'd want to come back, or he's fit, or anything. It's just, you know, it's just one of those things we're going to talk about, I suppose. But you know, we also Pan. We've been talking about. People have said what we really need is a midfield general. You know, a fit Aaron Ramsey wouldn't be a bad version to have, would he? In that way, you know.
Yeah, I think I agree, Richie. I just think, you know, the ship sailed in terms of Aaron. I mean, you know, he was great, wasn't he, when he first appeared on the scene for us as a 17-year-old, and technically different level to most or any player I'd seen in 45 years. The only player I'd compare him to, you know, Eddie Newton, when he was there only on loan from Chelsea many years ago with Dave Bennett. I mean, Eddie Newton was, you know, class, similar type player. But yeah, for me personally, I think Ramsey really wants to. You know, Wales have obviously got a great chance. They will be in the playoffs regardless of what happens against Macedonia, obviously. But if they get through a second, then they get a home draw in the semi-final, and then obviously there's the final. Then so they'd have more chance of getting to the sort of playoff final. Really, if they come second, they should get a favourable draw. I think Ramsey definitely wants to end his career on a high, and you know, I think Bellamy. You know, wants him to continue. I think Ramsey will probably continue. Obviously, he's had that you know, family issue, like, you know, that's why he's come back with the dog and stuff. But I think he will find a club. I think he'll be determined to carry on to try and get a place in the Wales squad. Obviously, depending if we qualify, if we don't qualify, he might just call it a day.
Game over, probably. Let me just bring Terry in briefly on the Aaron Ramsey thing. Then I'll come back to you, Pan. Got any thoughts on that, Terry?
Yeah, when he came back and joined the club originally, he had a great start, and he bossed the midfield. He made some great moves. He scored some good goals. Then he had the injury. And then he became an expensive liability, didn't he? The rest of the season, he never played. He came back towards the end. He was immediately injured again. And I think he was an expensive liability where we could have got a couple of other players in on that wages for the price we were paying him for sitting on the bench.
It was a bit strange with him, actually, because, I mean, there was a strong rumor at one point, wasn't there, that he was going to be the manager. It was like a done thing, and then all of a sudden they went quiet, and then he shot off to play in Mexico. It's a very Cardiff City story, Terry, isn't it? Really,
it is. And again, I don't think we wouldn't have been the right choice for manager coming sort of off the player side onto the field. He had no experience. He wasn't worldly wise and that. I know he did a lot of background work when he's playing for Wales, and he's a great support for Bellamy, but the situation, and he wasn't the man we needed.
Okay. And if I come back to you, thanks, Terry, we'll just come back to you, Pan, and this question then from Paul. Seems to be a manager trying to keep everyone happy. If they aren't consistent, then they should be dropped. Because I love Brian Barry Murphy. I think he's great. I really, really, really think we've got a really, really good one. Yeah. But this thing of changing things all the time, particularly the defensive partnerships, because when you said about the goals, you talked about it earlier, Pan, when we started off, it was the first 8-10 games, we barely conceded a goal from open play. We had an unbelievable record, So what's your thoughts on the changes in that way?
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think, the first 10 games we conceded, it's like 3 goals, didn't lose. Last 10, we've lost 5 and conceded 11. And you could look at certain individuals. I mean, Osho made a couple of errors, but we've changed the central defence a number of times. And I think to be fair, I think Chambers has done really well when he's come in. But I think the issue for me is the midfield. I just personally, and this is just my opinion, I think Turnbull should go in January. I that's just my view. I just think there's also the issue about the fee, because we paid $1 million. And I think there's another $1 million to pay on appearances. Oh, yeah. But I just don't think it's worked out. I mean, I've talked to some fans from Celtic, and his record was like, half a dozen goals in nearly 100 games. And they just said he doesn't do enough. He should be scoring more. He was at 10 previously, but, I just don't see him fitting into the manager's philosophy of play. Whereas, obviously Joe Colwell, has really come on under the manager. And yes, there's that level of inconsistency with the Joe Colwell. But personally, and I'll say this about Robertson as well, he came on the back of Pompey saying, what a great player, League One, Man City. We thought, this is really good. And I don't think it's worked out for him. I know he's had injuries and stuff, but I don't know if it's an attitude thing as well, that he hasn't been up to pace in training, and he's taken a long time to come back in. But maybe Robertson will come good. But I just think Robertson and Turnbull are two I'd seriously look at if, shipping out and bringing, someone else in. I just think, Ruben and Joe Colwell have done really well in a lot of games, but you can see that inconsistency in games. And I think they need extra help in there. So that's what I would do.
So just going to ask you this one, Pan. You might know. I don't know. Was David Turnbull, was he a so-called inverted commas club signing?
Yeah. I don't know. Looking back in terms of the signing, I don't know if the manager had any kind of real involvement in that signing.
It was weird, wasn't it? It was quite a bit of money, and it didn't seem like a position we needed at that time. Really.
Yeah, and I heard about the recruitment side of it. You know about connections. It's all about certain connections, isn't it? Certain people we've got in the recruitment know someone from the Celtic team. And there were some issues in the background about that, and sometimes these things happen on the back of that. And I think Celtic were over the moon when they got up to £2 million for Turnbull, because he just hasn't. I think there was a spell, I don't know if it was last season, between him and Robertson. They had a few games together and they played really well together. So you know, they have played well together in previous games last season, but I just haven't seen it. And yeah, I just think those two players for me would be ones I would look to sell in January.
So Terry, would you largely agree with that? Because they, either one of them would, in theory, bring a few bob in, and they're not quite gelling with the current kind of style of play, really, are they?
No, I agree with Pan. I mean, last season when they were both playing together, they played extremely well, and we thought we had a good centre midfielders there, which were going to serve us well. And Turnbull in that time, we wanted him. We felt he was part of the setup and going well. And Robertson, I just don't understand what's happening there. There's something, whether he's not fit, whether he's injury prone, or whether he doesn't fit with some of the background. But he doesn't seem to fit in with what the manager wants, does he? He seemed to be on the sidelines a lot with injury. Yet there's always some doubt whether he's injured.
It's a funny thing with Robertson, because I personally, he's definitely a player there. There's no doubt about it. He's got something about him. He's come through at a good level, and he's got something going for him. When he got the injury, Terry, if you remember, it was in a pre-season friendly, and he was actually putting the boot in a bit, actually, and putting himself about, And I think the guy responded, and he picked up the injury. But then you hear that he was linked, wasn't he, with a championship club, and he picked up the injury and he couldn't move away. And we wonder if he's throwing a wobbler and maybe trying to push for getting away, maybe in January. I don't know.
Well, I get the feeling there's something going on in the back wing, something we're not aware of as fans, that there's something going on with Robertson that didn't gel with what the club want at the moment.
Yeah, we'll have to see how he comes on. What's your thought, Rich, on that? Because it seems to be like the crux where we're maybe slightly struggling at times. We do look a bit overrun in midfield sometimes. It's just trying to find the right two. Or, is he changing it too much? What would be your two you go with at the moment?
I don't really disagree too much with what the guy said, to be honest. I think it's frustrating watching both Robertson and Turnbull. Turnbull especially, and I do agree with Pan. I think he should be moved on in January. I just feel as though he's not a good fit for us as a club. I feel the way we play doesn't suit him. Robertson, I'm more inclined to think let's see more of him, because, like Terry said, he's been injured. Was there a case that there was a move on the cards that didn't happen? I don't know. It's something strange going on, I think, over the last few months, because although, yes, he did get injured in pre-season, that seemed to go on and on and on. So when we've seen him, there's been times he's been really good, I think. And I think if we can get him back to that level, there's a good player there. Personally, I'd like to see a midfield three of him and the two Caldwell brothers, because I think that could be...
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
quite attack-minded and quite fast and, expansive. And I think that'd be really, really good and exciting to see them three in the midfield. But as of yet, I don't think we've seen that. So, I think for Turnbull, I think I'd be happy to see him go. But for Robertson, I think let's see more of him. Because it feels as though we haven't seen enough.
Well, we're into November, so we're not really far from the transfer window. So you celebrated your 30th anniversary of watching Cardiff City on Tuesday, and obviously that's quite a landmark. Can you? I can't. I'll just say, but can you remember your first game and anything about it?
Yeah, it was Colchester at Ninian Park. It was a crowd of 3,200, and I used to know. I think it was 14. We lost 2-1. Darren Adams, if you remember him, scored for us.
Yeah. And we used to sing the Adams Family tunes, didn't we?
That's it. Yeah. We had just sold Phil Stant, I think, that summer, So I'm pretty sure it was Caldale and Darren Adams up front for us, I think. And Colchester had a striker called Tony Adcock, who scored 2 headers that day. He was a lower league striker. He scored loads. If you look him up, I think he had about 300-400 career goals in the end. But and they had Mark Kinsella, if you remember him. He went on to play for Charlton, Aston Villa, and played for Ireland in the 2002 World Cup, I think. He was playing in midfield from he was young. It was a 3,000 crowd, and I always remember Di Hunt, a famous fan, being on the front of the box.
Oh, you'd know him in a 3,000 crowd. You wouldn't want to be there then, would you?
You really would, and I could hear him over everyone, and he was sat at the front row of the Bob Bank seats because the terrace wasn't open back then.
Yeah.
And the away fans, the Grange End was actually closed. There was no roof on the Grange End. The Grange End was closed, and the away fans were in block A and B of the grandstand.
Yeah.
So that's my memories of it, and it was it's just football wasn't great.
I'm going to stick with that because I want to ask Terry, because Terry's first match was slightly earlier. Tell us about yours, Terry.
Oh, blimey, gone. It was 1957. I honestly cannot recall who was actually playing that day. I only remember I was a 11-year-old standing on the terrace with my brother, and I remember the first the ball came into the centre of the box, and Trevor Ford went up. The keeper caught it, and next minute he'd bundle him into the back of the net, and we were 1-0 up. But I can't remember which game it was.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame that's gone out of football, Terry. Isn't it? The fact you could shoulder the goalkeeper across the line. I mean, what's wrong with that? No.
Well, I mean, any pushing anything in the box, now immediately whistle goes, isn't it? You know, it's more like a rugby scrum in the box now in a football match. Everybody's pushing, shoving, and everything else. The only one you're not allowed to touch is the keeper, and he can catch it cleanly, and that's the end of that cross, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of gone too far the other way. But when we were talking about this before we went on, and you said about Derek Tapscott and these kind of players, and you said about having a little go at the keeper and whatever. I remember I used to love Phil Dwyer, and Phil Dwyer would go up for a corner like this, and the keeper would be flattened and he'd be in the back of the net, But talking of Phil Dwyer and people like Don Murray, you mentioned Danny Malloy, right? So Danny Malloy, would he be right up there for you if you're picking a centre half for your all-time City team? Which of those would be in it?
Danny Malloy. I mean, nobody passed when he was in the middle. Nobody got past him with a shot at goal. He was absolutely solid, and the keeper and all the rest of the defence. If Danny wasn't on form, we didn't play well. If Danny was there, nobody scored. He was absolutely solid. And again, one thing I find strange, I've been watching for so long, the teams which came out every week, with 1 or 2 exceptions, with the same team. These days, we never have the same start in 11. We get players who are out now who seem to be out for an extraordinary amount of time when they're injured. They seem to get a knock which takes 3 to 4 months to recover from. Look at Ollie Tanner at the moment. He gets one bump at the beginning of the season, not going to play until towards the end of the season. Never remember that in the old days.
No, I think the health and safety wasn't quite as appreciated, maybe.
No, maybe not. But I mean, it was football, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's gone too far the other way. I think Pan as well. I don't know. You're much younger than some of us on tonight's panel, but some of the training regimes. Like go down the local park, have a fag half time, and all the rest of it. For some reason they've stopped doing that. It seems to be a different game these days.
Yeah, I agree with Terry in a way. Like the old days, you'd have one sub, isn't it? And players used to play week in, week out. There was no complaining about Saturday, Tuesday, whatever. Friday. You just get on with it. And but I think you've also got to look at the speed of the game as well. Like how it's developed over the years. But yeah, I do sometimes wonder. Like with the old. I mean, Phil Dwyer was just a beast when it came to always being on the pitch. Like what he takes some brutal punishment, but he'd always be there as our captain.
He didn't take any prisoners, did he?
No, not at all. I mean, he's one of my favourite players when I started watching the City.
Yeah,
it's just a Terry Boyle. These type of players, proper man's man kind of thing. So, it is a different type of game. But I think the old days, training regimes was in the car park, wasn't it?
Yeah, because there's footage of us before a big cup game. I think it might have been the Everton game when we were we're literally training in the car park outside Ninian, But the comment on the screen there, by the way, Phil Dwyer is my all-time favourite Cardiff City player, full stop. About Robbo and that chance that came up on the weekend, because it was a terrible kind of boo-boo from the keeper, wasn't it? You basically gave him, time and space, really. What's your thoughts on that one? It was kind of our best chance, I suppose. Would you say, Pan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you get chances, you've got to take them. And, Robbo's, to be honest with you, he's scored some very great goals for us in the past, and he's... he's one of our better players, isn't he? I mean, obviously, they've got 11 goals between Salek and Robbo so far. I mean, yeah, he should have done better with it. But, you know, I don't look at him, you know, as the reason why we didn't get something. Yeah, we'd scored. But I just think we, you know, it's creating more chances during the game. We just didn't seem, I mean, we've done it before, haven't we, in other games, you know, against Bolton. So frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, with the amount of shots on goal. And I just think, as I said, it keeps coming on to that inconsistency. And I think the manager, I've always been, you know, when the manager, he always comes out and he's very honest after games. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He says it as we see it. You know, and I think that's great. And I think he's aware that obviously some of the players are just not, you know, up to the levels needed to, I mean, to maintain that top 2-3 position. I just think, like I said, we definitely need some strength in the midfield. But yeah, Robbo, it was a good chance to score. It's easy for us to say, isn't it, you know, in hindsight, what he should have done. Yeah. But, you know, as I said, he's still one of our better players, and I wouldn't knock him for that miss.
Yeah, and coming back to you, Rich, if we talk a little bit about the Wrexham game, which we obviously should, particularly in that first half. I suppose going back to what Pan just said, really, I think the kind of, you know, that's the epitome, really, of us playing the kind of football that BBM wants us to play. And maybe he's struggling to just get that to happen, you know, week after week, and get that mindset in where we're we're pressing and we're on the front foot and we're in their faces. It's just a bit inconsistent with that, maybe.
Yeah, but that could again go down to what we mentioned earlier, where he's chopping and changing his starting lineup all the time, you know, and more players or certain players are more on board with it than others. I mean, like, you know, I think, you know, as you said, we mentioned the midfield earlier. I mean, when I see Ruben and Joel Caldwell play, and I always think we can win this game. When I see Dave Turnbull in the midfield, I have doubts, you know, and that's not me being nasty about Dave Turnbull, because I'm sure there's a player that he just doesn't fit us, and I think the same can be said for other players too. So I think when we lined up in that Wrexham game, I genuinely looked at our starting lineup and I thought, I'm happy with that. That's a really good team, and I was confident, and you know, I had a good feeling that we were going to win it. I was quite confident on Saturday, mind that said, when I seen the lineup.
Yeah. When I saw the team, I thought that's a pretty good team, to be honest. Yeah.
It just feels as though sometimes he's, you know, someone I think said in comments he's making the full use of his squad, and I feel sometimes that's what he is doing, and he's almost making changes just for change's sake. But this is the problem when you got such a small squad, that he's trying to make use of everyone. I suppose he doesn't want players to get tired. He doesn't want to wear certain ones out, because he knows it's a long old season and there's a lot of games. The fact that there's 7 subs now you can name instead of 9, I think he's having a bearing on us as well, because he's saying he's happy with the squad size and he doesn't seem to want to increase the squad size. That might be something to do with off the field, though, and money not being available for players. I don't know, but yeah, it's frustrating, and we can't seem to get this consistency going. I think certain games we look like a team who are certainly going to get promoted and and great entertainers, and then the following game we look quite average, you know, and that's how I felt we looked on Saturday. I was listening to the Radio Wales commentary, and Andy Legg was getting very frustrated with.
He was.
He was, yeah, and I could feel his frustration, you know, as I was listening along to it. You know, it's I can't quite put my finger on it, apart from thinking maybe it's too many changes when we might benefit from just going with the same sort of starting 11 for 2 or 3 games, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure you got some thoughts on that, Terry, because I know it was different we talked about the older days.
No,
it was different then, but again, there's something to be said, isn't there, for keeping like a defensive partnership together or something, you know.
Yeah, I think you know, with the rotation. I mean, bear in mind, most games we bring on 4 or 5 substitutes second half anyway, so most people are getting a game. But what we need to do is have a consistent start to the game, and we need to get in front early on so we can make the changes without impacting the game. But what's been happening in the last few games, we've been chasing it. You take Burton at home, we were on top of that game. We had so many shots on goal, yet we couldn't get one between the posts, and they come and pinch one in the 93rd minute. You know, we don't seem to be there consistent, and I think a lot of teams have done their homework now. They play Cardiff, they know what they are as an attacking force, and they negate us, take us out in midfield. We don't get in the box. We can't do it. I mean, what's the point? We can't seem to get the ball in and give Salek any decent service up front. He's the man who could put the ball in the net, but we can't get it to his feet in the right place. We dawdle around, we play around in midfield, we dominate the game. 70-80% of the game is dominated by us, yet we're not putting the ball in the net, and that's what wins games.
Yeah, I mean, Martin makes a point as well about Bolton. I thought Bolton played really well, to be honest. They had two very quick, strong fullbacks that limited our attacking options. We need more pace in the front three. Who would be your front three, do you think, at the moment, Terry?
I don't understand why he doesn't start with Robertson and Salek up front and then Ruben in behind them. Because Ruben can make the opportunities, and these are two players who can score goals given the right opportunity. They can head the ball, they can put it in with their boot. So if they played that consistently up front, then we could dominate the game in the first 50, 60 minutes, get a couple of goals in the box, and then we can end up making the changes and resting these players. But we need those goals going on. We seem to struggle to score, and most teams score against us in the first half. So we're always chasing games. We don't start off with a good positive attitude, take a nice little lead, and then you could afford to make changes and just keep the ball in midfield.
Yeah, and Pam, with that, I'll come back to the Bacon comment, which is a really good one in a minute. Against Wrexham, we kind of did. We sort of went for the throw, and we looked great for doing it. It just seems like a lot of first halves, particularly at home, I think, actually, it's like so abject and nothing going on. I think our second half, we're kicking towards our own end. We might pick up a bit, but it just seems we struggle for some reason. And is it to do with the change? Just struggling to hit the ground running,
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think I think going on Bacon as well. I think we've been really, really lucky having Bacon play. Was it nearly every game? I mean, obviously there was that one where Mafiko came in and tried his best to do a job out of position. No criticism about him, but we just. I mean, I think you always, when you look at a game, you always have to look at it in two parts. In one, we played really well, but Wrexham fans I spoke to said they were awful. Now, there's a bit of both in terms of how we dominated the ball, the pace we played at, because Wrexham against Coventry were like we were against Wrexham. So, I don't know what it is in terms of what, and you're right, is like there's certain players, like, for example, Capaccio, I've always said, is a wing back.
I agree.
He's not a defensive two. No. He's going to grow. He's going to develop. He's going to be a great player. He's such a young age. But, I can see why he swaps with NG in certain times where NG, I'm not a big fan of NG, never have been, but he does offer something different to Capaccio defensively, although he has been, NG last season was quite vulnerable. So you can understand certain changes in certain games depending on who you're playing. But I do agree, about the Robinson Salek thing. Sometimes I think, but a lot of these managers now, they just go with the one up front, don't they? And systems, we talk about systems and styles, but I'd like us to try Robinson and Salek in one or two games. I really like Kellyman. I think Kellyman's really settled down. I like Ashwood on the left. I think Davis, for me, is a good player, but he's more of a sub, in my mind. He seems to do really well off the bench when he starts. Sometimes I'm not so sure. So, and I always think like there's certain players who are more suited to being on the bench and coming on than starting. So, I agree, though, he does tinker with it a bit, and that could have affected us a little bit. But I do think the biggest thing is level performance, and Ruben Colwell, as I would say, started the season so well, with his goals. I think he scored the same amount of goals as he did in any other full season early on. But, when you look at his performances, man of the match against Wrexham, and I think it was 18 games previous, which was the first game of the season against Peterborough, he was man of the match. Now, Ruben Colwell is, like I said, his performances have been good. They've been averaging about 7 out of 10, but I think some of the performances have been dropping, and that's the same with his brother as well. So yeah, I'm really pleased at where we're at the moment. I just feel that we definitely need extra bodies in January to sort of stay up there, because I said at the beginning of the season Stockport will win the league. I still believe that. I said it, before the season started with Dave Challenger. I think he's the best manager in the league. So, there's a lot of competition at that top. It's going to be very competitive with your Bradfords and stuff. So for us to stay in the top 3 or 4 is not going to be easy.
Yeah, and the worst case scenario, Rich, is obviously that we fall into the playoffs, and then, God forbid, we don't make it, because it's such a lottery in the playoffs. Anything can, an injury, a sending off, whatever, and things change. But coming back to Ruben, Rich, you made a good point when we were chatting again before the show. You said about the, he has made that number of appearances, but he hasn't actually made that number of starting appearances.
Yeah, it's something. I did have the stats, but I can't remember exactly what it is. It's something like 36 starts in 100 and close to about 150 games, which isn't a great deal, to be honest. I mean, how many times have we seen over the last? He's been with us now. I think this is his 6th season as a full pro, which he obviously turned pro at 17. This is the 6th season with us now, and the first where we've actually seen a manager give him a run of games through in the middle and actually have faith in him. How many times over the last 6 years have we seen Ruben come on for 10, 15, 20 minutes and be played on the wing where he's nullified and he doesn't do anything, and then people criticise him and say, oh, he doesn't offer this, he don't do that. Well, that's not his best position. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, Ruben Caldwell reminds me, and some people will jump on this now and say, he's nowhere near. I'm not saying... It reminds me in terms of being able to create, in terms of creativity and being able to change a game. Like Matt Letizia was for Southampton, where they tried him on the wing, they tried him as a second striker. They couldn't. Same with England, they couldn't find a place for him where they were going to put him on the left wing. Where do we play him? And then when they played him through the middle, it's like that number 10, they call it nowadays, or I call it attacking midfielder. And when they played him there, what they realised was this guy was the talisman. He was brilliant. He was scoring goals. He was taking men on. He was almost had a free role in the end. I'm not suggesting for any minute that Ruben Cole is going to be as good as him. I hope he is. But I think we need to give this guy a bit of a free role and say, go and play, go and express yourself. Because an on-form Ruben Caldwell for me is as good as any player in this division, and I think can go on and be even better. But you've got to look at the players around him as well. They've got to do their bit as well. And I think sometimes this chopping and changing in midfield and this insistence of, like Terry said, of keeping the ball and having 3,000 passes before we even put a ball into the box, that's not helping anyone. It's
it gets a bit technical and samey, doesn't it, at times? The point you make about Matt Letizia is a really good one, because I saw him play in the League Cup match, I think it was, against City at Ninian. He scored one of the best goals I've ever seen scored against us. He was just phenomenal. It was phenomenally good that night, and I think the word phenomenon is probably pointing towards that he's a little bit different to other players, and I think Ruben's a little bit different to other players. And I personally think if he plays at a higher level, I think that's where he'll shine. It may or may not be with us, but I personally think he's potentially got a really big future. But Terry, it's the same with a lot of things. I mean, I'm pretty terrible at golf. It doesn't really affect my game too much, but a lot of sport is played in the head. And I think like when I miss a 2-foot putt when I'm playing against my mates and whatever, so that meant the psychology of it and the self-belief and support from the management, etc., is really kind of paramount, isn't it?
It is. And again, when you've got young players, they need that support to make sure they bring out their best in every game. And I think what's happening is now we're down in that division below again. We struggle for all those years, 5 or 6 years in the championship, but we come down, we're in a different league, and all these teams in there are completely different. And if they play in a side with the calibre of Cardiff City basically got, they do their homework and they know that if they crowd them out, they're then going to start panicking. And that's what I think we do. When we not getting the ball in the first half, we then in the second half have to fight to come back into the game, and they wait for the one opportunity to break away and score. And we've seen that too many times this season. And again, you get the games, really. The Lake Nordian game in particular.
Yeah, and that's what happened to Peterborough, really, wasn't it? We gave away quite a sloppy goal in the end, didn't we? Really?
Yeah, and it's happened since the first 7 or 8 games. They've all learned about how we play our style. They all know what we're doing, and we are the bottom sides come there deliberately to shield the defence. and we don't seem to have the way around it. I think Caldwell plays well when he knows that there's plenty. He played well against Burnley. He played well against Wrexham because they were players who were playing football, trying to attack and score goals. So and he knew he could run at them, and they knew and just put in 10 men in defence and creating a wall which they couldn't find a way through.
You might have struck gold with that comment, I think, because Wrexham, okay, it's Wrexham, and we got we have a connection with them, but they're a championship side. We're not, so they should have won the game in theory, and they would have been and were the favourites. So maybe because we went at them, maybe they weren't expecting that, and then reversely when we played at Peterborough, they kind of saw us off, didn't they? So. And maybe Peterborough,
I think it's expectation too.
Yeah.
This is why at times they're gonna find it difficult in Division 1 that they're gonna these teams are not gonna come there to win. They're gonna come there to stonewall and then wait for one opportunity, and that's what they've done. Burton did it, Bolton did it. They're all doing it to us now. They've all the first 7 or 8 games we were the new boys on the block, and we had some good results. They've all done it. They've all watched those games. They know what they got to do to get to win, and they're doing it. And they are pulling off these strange results. And when you got Peterborough, rock bottom of Division 1, I expect them to go there Saturday and score 3 goals. At least Cardiff get 3, and that was going to be a comfortable through to the next round. And we just didn't come off, did it? Didn't come off. No. And again, these fans who were saying, "Okay, that was the best thing that happened to us. Go out to the Cup." No, it's not. If you're in every competition, you're playing good football on a regular basis, it improves the whole calibre of the team, proves the whole team spirit. We want to be in every competition. We want to win every game. That's the attitude. Not we'll just concentrate on getting out of Division 1.
And what Terry's saying there, Pan, and what I quite liked it, maybe because we haven't got that many players, but we've seen in the cup matches, we've put out pretty strong sides, there's an argument to change things up in the cup, but we haven't really massively done that. Even to the extent, in the Peterborough game, I was quite surprised. Really, Trott started. I thought he might have, given Turner a chance. What about the comment from Martin there about Wrexham's back 3 were kind of, effectively there for the take in and sort of suited us, and we were winning so much ball. I mean, and also that we should have scored more because on
my podcast, I had quite a few Wrexham fans come on afterwards, and this is what I'm trying to say. They said it was their worst game of the season. How they played, and obviously you always look at it both ways in terms of, they still had 25 million worth of talent on the pitch, So, but I think it's a mentality thing as well because the expectation of you're playing a championship side is on ITV. The players, I'm not saying they shouldn't be motivated to beat Peterborough away, but I do wonder sometimes, with certain players, there's that kind of like, well, the expectation is Wrexham, should win. We're going to play with the freedom. We're going to go at them. We'll show them kind of thing. And then, the thing is for me, the Wrexham win was fantastic. Don't get away. But I was really more disappointed about the game after, in terms of why we couldn't maintain the levels. And like you said, we went with a really strong team. And on that as well, with someone like Turner in goals, he played really well against Peterborough the first game of the season. And, I do wonder, I do get the Trot thing in terms of how BBM plays. But, for someone like Turner, who for me, it was a real shock when he started the season in goal. Yeah. But I thought he did really well. And I think, what is it about a keeper when they play well that they get dropped, compared to, a right back or something that plays well and then keeps their place? I that's one I just didn't get.
Yeah. Because he did well, didn't he, when he came in for that game? He actually, it was a big shot. It was a big call, bringing in effectively a kid to play in goals. Just have a quick chat about, apparently in the next round of the cup we got some team from London called Chelsea. Any memories of games against them, Pan?
Yeah, well, for me, the one that I can't remember the year, my memory's going, but I think I could have been 83, 84.
Were you there for that?
It was Dixon, Nevin and Speedy, and Roger Gibbons, I think he scored 2. And I always remember that game because I had a season ticket for whatever reason in the grandstand with my mate. And we turned up at the game and we couldn't get into the seat because it was all Chelsea in the grandstand. And I think it was 3-0 to us after 30 odd minutes. And I remember a Dr. Martin boot flying over my head. And I was about 13 at the time. And I went in half time to get a Bovril or whatever. And this guy, he obviously must have just turned up. He was, typical skinhead, 6'2", Union Jack draped round his shoulder, Cockney accent, said, "Oh, what's the score, mate?" Didn't know where I was from. And I just looked up to him and I thought, I'm just saying 0-0. I didn't want to tell him that we were 3-0 up at that point. And obviously, with about 8 minutes to go, I thought, well, I'm going to get out. Me and my mate said we better go. I think, it could get a bit tasty. So we left the grandstand. My grandparents lived down Welfield Road in Canton. So by the time I got home, Frank Buffett said Cardiff City 3, Chelsea 3. So they scored 3 goals. I don't know if it was Speedy and Dixon. They had a brilliant, obviously talking about attacking front 3, those 3 players. But that was the memory for me. Yeah.
Do you remember that one, Rich?
No, I don't know. But I know some of the players. Pat Nevin is what a player he was. I recently read his books and interesting.
Oh yeah, well he's very articulate and bright guy, isn't he? So interesting things to say.
He's got a good knowledge of music. He's got a good taste in music as well. He likes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he loves his music. Yeah,
he's big fan
that game, Rich, I'll go with the word interesting. Terrifying springs to mind. I was scared to death, to be honest with you, but because they all basically wandered around onto the bank at the end of the game, whatever. It all kicked off massively. But what was interesting about it was, maybe Terry might remember this as well. We were talking about Aaron Ramsey coming back to Cardiff City from pure speculation, and the pure speculation was that the ref bottled it and made sure they didn't lose. It was a mad day. It was a mad day, and I just hope it's a great tie in a way because obviously we'll have a good crowd down there. Again, we'd be fully expected to lose. I would think we should lose against that side, but I just hope there's just no nonsense in and around the city. Really.
It was a little bit with Newport.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I've seen that.
Sorry, Terry.
I said, but one thing about Chelsea, we have a reasonable record against them. And again,
we do.
And the situation is, on the day again, if those players who played against Wrexham can lift that same sort of degree of game, we could quite easily pinch out 1-0 down to Cardiff City Stadium. Because again, they will have the freedom to play the football. They got a showpiece to go ahead on. So there's no reason we can't win that.
Yeah, and they'll probably pick a load of kids. I mean, they got 4,055 players, haven't they? So
yeah,
they got so many players. It's crazy, If they put a bunch of kids out, will that gives us an in? Does it, Terry? Gives us a chance?
I think I honestly believe so. Yeah, I think they're the sort of games that we seem to lift ourselves at, and the games we shouldn't lift ourselves at. We are maybe the inconsistent and a bit complacent. We know it's a game we're going to win. We're good enough. We're going to win it, and we don't. But the games you've got to work for, we come off better.
Just briefly with the FA Cup, going out of the FA Cup in the first round, not even getting the third round where we played every third round for 20 odd years.
Yeah,
it's a bit strange, isn't it? But kind of sad.
Well, we have a bad record in the FA Cup most of the time, don't we? We rarely go beyond the third round. I don't care who we play. We don't. It's been a long time. I remember a few years back when we got to the final, but I was a strange year when you get that against Portsmouth. But I mean, it was one of those years I think anybody was really interested in the FA Cup, and we sneaked in the back door. But most of the time in the FA Cup, we never seemed to have a good run.
Yeah, that was the year where we had that really great black and gold kit, and there was the famous recreation with Lego with the goals, which I loved. Yeah. Actually, that was funny enough. Pam, what Terry said there about getting past the third round. I remember when we beat Wolves. I think we beat Wolves. Was it to get into the fifth round? Or was that the fourth or fifth round? Maybe that was the Hasselbank goal actually. And I thought then, wow, this is massive. We haven't got to beyond this stage for years, and it is this kind of clash against Chelsea, it does bring attention to the club, which is nice, and also puts cash in the coffers. It's a great draw, I suppose, is it, Pam? Would you say?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not sure. Some of the lads might be able to tell me whether is it Kellyman? Can he play?
No, I doubt it. No,
he'd be captain, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
he would be captain with it. Yeah, because sometimes clubs don't put conditions on the loans. But it's a great draw, isn't it? And I agree with Terry. We lift ourselves. With the games like this, the players will be highly motivated. But as I said, as fans, the atmosphere should be great. And we all remember that incident where Chelsea were like 20 yards offside, weren't they, under Warnock?
Yeah.
So we've got the bitter memory of that as well. So I think it'll be a very good game. And as I said, what Terry said about the FA Cup, I was saying about the League Cup. Third time in the quarterfinal in 65 years. We had the semi-final in the 60s against West Ham. And, as I said, we don't normally do that well in the Cup. So we've got to savour the moment, and anything can happen on the nights. But as I said, for me, these next run of games are more important. Blackpool away on Saturday, Steve Bruce's side, the 23rd in the league. Steve Bruce, I think he's still there. I'm not sure Blackpool of it. He's a wily manager, and that's a really key game for us. And to be honest with you, I'd rather us beat Blackpool and lose to Chelsea overall.
We'll go around for predictions in a bit. So the management's changed at Blackpool, is it now, Rich?
Yeah, actually, there's a guy who was heavily linked with us in the summer. Ian Everett has just gone in there.
Ian Evans,
yeah.
He's had 2 games now. They're undefeated in their last 4 as well, Blackpool. They're still 23rd in the table, but they won a cup game on the weekend against Scunthorpe, I think. And then they won, 2 of the 4 games. One is in the LV Cup or whatever it's called, the
Silly Cup.
Yeah, I think they beat Nottingham Forest under 21s, and then they won the FA Cup on the weekend. So they are undefeated in 4, and I think Ian Everett's been there for 2 or 3 of them. So
that's the usual new manager bounce back, isn't it?
Yeah,
a new manager. Same with Peterborough weekend, wasn't it? New manager in, they pull off a win.
Well, just to say on that one, Terry, which I'm glad you mentioned that. It was nice actually. I know it was Swansea and all that, but Luke Williams said lovely things about us. What a brilliant team we were, and he was chuffed to beans that they managed to beat us. So and he kind of rose above the Cardiff Swansea thing, which doesn't happen that often, which is quite nice to see. Away trips to Blackpool, always fun. Anyone been on one?
Never been to Blackpool.
No, I went on one, and it ended up in a strange incident, which I won't go into details on, but it involved somebody being accused of something in a nightclub toilet and a pair of trousers. And I'm just gonna leave it there and leave that to everyone's imagination. Let's have a think about the Blackpool game. Can we get back on track, Rich? And how do you see it going?
We never do well up there, to be honest. No. I got 3 of us losing up there 1-0. John Hills, former Everton left back, scoring up there in a freezing cold sort of December. It always seems to be 1-1 when we play Blackpool, and the fact that Ian Everett's gone in there now, and like Terry said, a new manager bounce, they're undefeated in their last 4. I don't know, but we have got this inconsistency where on the back of a loss we always win. So we've got no clean sheets in 8 though. Our last clean sheet was against Wigan.
Weird as hell that is to me.
Yeah, it is, especially when we
started so well defensively.
Yeah, and when we think how well Nathan Trotter's played and how good Will Fish and Dylan Laura have been, and our whole back 4 really, Bagan and Capaccio stroke NG as well. Blackpool, I don't know. I think, listen, based on the inconsistencies of how we've been this season, we're obviously going to go there and win. Probably 3-2. How's about that?
Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? How about you, Terry? Are you confident for the weekend?
I am not. No, I'm going with it. On form, if you look at the thing on LWLW, we do for a W at the weekend. So on the race and form, that's what'll happen. But I got a feeling we're going to score first and lose 2-1.
Let me ask you a slightly different one, Terry, as well, which you might not be able to answer. Sorry, it's an unfair question, but if you watched Cardiff City as a rival manager, would you have like an approach if you were playing Cardiff City, like what you would do just on the nullifiers?
Yeah, I would stop you up front, nullify you in midfield, and we don't see no way around that. That's been our Achilles heel all season. If you're going to nullify us in midfield, we pass back and forth. We're in the other half, but we're not able to break through the defence, get the ball into a striker and get it in the back of the net.
Yeah, and that's again.
If you can nullify the midfield, you've got a good chance.
Yeah, and that again, off the back of that, Pam, with Terry, it's a case of, I think, getting more ball, getting into the box more, getting the ball into the box more, and we got someone like Yusuf Salek. He scored with the scraps that he's getting. He's scoring goals. He might not be everyone's cup of tea. I think he's top class at that level myself, but surely it's a case of just using our width, because we do play with a bit of width, and getting the ball into him more. And then he's there or thereabouts, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't understand it. As I said, maybe it's my lack of knowledge when it comes to football in the modern game. But I know as supporters, we look at it and we just think, get a crossing. We love a cross. My hero was Dave Bennett. From the early '80s, he was
I love Dave
as I was
Bennett.
concerned, he was the best winger that I've seen. And he just get that ball in the box with Bob Hatton. And he was just brilliant at crossing the ball. As well as many other things, dribbling as well, and that seems to have gone by. Is it when do you see the wingers like the Waddles and that beat players down the wing? They all cut back inside, play it back through to the middle, goes back out. That seems to be the way it is these days, instead of dribbling past the player and crossing the ball in. So for me, Salek, he does a hell of a lot of work, and I just like to see more balls in the box. And but against Blackpool, I'm a little bit sceptical how we going to. I think a draw. I'd be pleased if we get a draw there, to be honest.
Do you remember in the old days at Ninian when quite often Gary Bennett would bring the ball out of defence, and then he'd get it to Dave Bennett, and the way the whole crowd was lifted as soon as Dave Bennett got the ball,
Yeah, well, that was it. I mean, like I said, for my woes, I was in the grandstand, the wooden seats in the old days, and every time Benno used to have the ball on the wing, everyone would get off their seat. He was that type of player because you knew his quality. He would glide with the ball, and he would beat players with ease. And his crossing was superb. It was on a sixpence to Hatton or Jeff Emmerman, and as I said, I do. It's a shame. I do think we missed that in the modern game. I don't know if it's coached out of players, the way they play. I just like to see that. I think fans love to see a player down the wing beat someone and get that ball in. Kellyman's, obviously finding his form now. I thought Ashford played really well against Wrexham, and I just think we just need to get those crosses in. Salek from 5-6 yards out, give him the opportunities and he'll score.
Feed Yusuf and he will score.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks a lot, guys, for a great show. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
This channel is powered by an incredible membership community on Cardiff City World and patreon.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Becoming a member unlocks exclusive rewards from early access to live event tickets, bonus content, and even the occasional inside transfer scoop when we get it. But more importantly, it allows us to bring you top quality Cardiff City content 7 days a week. Across those 7 days, we're talking match previews, exclusive interviews, instant match reactions, the breakdown podcast, tactical deep dives, the Spotlight series, Bluebirds Rewind, Academy Focus, and just so much more. Led by myself, backed by an army of passionate Cardiff City fans, this is content created by fans, for fans, balanced, professional, and 100% all about the club we all love. If you enjoy what we do, then join the community today and support what we are doing as we help to keep Cardiff City World flying high.